church, on purpose, chooses the readings for the Sundays of Advent to focus on a particular and distinctive theme. Being the second Sunday of Advent, the theme today deals with John the Baptist, as we heard in our gospel reading here today. May we learn from the example of this great saint and amend those things in our life which are keeping us from God. Analyzing the life of John the Baptist from the gospel, we can say in summary form that he is not only the great precursor of Christ, but that he is a prophet, the last. He is a witness to Jesus. As we just heard, he is humble. He's not worthy to loosen the sandal of the Messiah. He is austere. He is courageous. And that he must have been a man of prayer. St. John the Baptist is a good model for us in which we can see one man who gave everything, his life, for the sake of Christ. And in connection with all of this, the church during Advent gives us readings from the prophet Isaiah, especially focusing on the description of salvation which would be wrought by the promised Messiah. And you've heard these things before. The deserts will bloom and bear fruit. The lame, they will walk. The deaf will hear, the blind will see, the lowly will find joy, the poor will rejoice. And you remember, these are the very things that Jesus told his disciples to go and tell John. Remember, John sent messengers to go and ask Jesus, "Are you the Messiah? Are you the one who is to come?" And what does Jesus say? He tells them, go and tell him these very things. He said, go and tell John what you see and hear. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have the good news preached to them. Remember, John knew Isaiah, so he would have known from this response that indeed it is the Messiah. It is he who was prophesied all these years, all these centuries before him. And from the gospel during Advent, we hear about Jesus healing especially the blind. Referring back to these passages from Isaiah, and in many of these cases, the blind were able to see and recognize the Messiah spiritually, while those who could see physically could not see or recognize the Messiah spiritually. They were able to see, yet spiritually blind. And this is a good moral lesson for us, connecting the figure of John the Baptist with seeing in this. John told us that while he baptized with water, that Jesus would baptize with the Holy Spirit. And we know that all who are validly baptized receive the gifts of the Holy Spirit, at least in seed form. And one of these 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit is the gift of understanding, which helps in perfecting the virtue of faith. This is the way that God set things up, that through baptism we receive these gifts of the Holy Spirit, and each one of them and all of them taken together help us to practice the virtues of faith, hope, and charity, justice, temperance, fortitude, prudence, humility, and many others. But there are 2 vices which are opposed to this gift of understanding. Vices which keep us from perfecting our life of faith. They proceed from gluttony and lust. Gluttony produces dullness of the spiritual sense. It is a weakening of vision or a myopia. In other words, if I am eating too much, drinking too much, I'm committing the sin of gluttony, I have a weakening in my spiritual vision. I can't see things as clearly in a spiritual sense. Lust produces spiritual blindness.